Well, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and thank you so much for joining me for today's Friday Masterclass, where we will be working on an Ennio Morricone-inspired soundtrack written some time ago in the spirit of the sort of classic Sergio Leone 60s westerns, if you're a fan of any of those. Recently kind of binge watching some of those old Clint Eastwood movies a week or so ago and remembered, oh yeah, there was a time where I composed a theme actually for our evangelist team to kind of, in the spirit of, well, anyway, we'll get into it once we play the music. As always, of course, we're coming to you live on Adobe Live, Behance, YouTube. So thank you so much for joining. Great to have you all with me here today. And yeah, we've got, we're just going to kind of go through, we're going to reveal some of these tracks. This was an old session, so I wasn't able to find the original sort of construction of it. I did find I had at some point had done a stems export. So we've talked about this in other episodes, taking your sort of multi-track masters and then typically in a video workflow, you're not going to hand off generally the unedited sort of session itself. That doesn't necessarily help video people, but you'll give them stems of all of the tracks themselves, which bakes in a lot of the EQ and effects to each of those tracks. But it's sort of an easier way to also move things around and to archive stuff. So we're going to sort of also deconstruct some of this and demix some of it in the process of remixing some of it as well. And yeah, this should be pretty cool. So, all right, quick couple shout outs here. Steve, yes, me too. Axel, Alessandra, Polk Music, Gino, Wade, how's it going? Great to see you. All right, now one more thing I wanted to also show you before we move on here, in the spirit of in the spirit of looking back, flashing back. Let's do a little Flashback Friday here with yours truly. Again, I was doing some archiving, and I thought this would just be fun. You can see the date. Foxy. I'm not going to leave this up too long. Do not screenshot that. I found all these old photos. Again, I recently did this legacy box of all these photos and stuff. This was not among them. I found this one on a drive I archived about 15 spinning 7200 RPM USB flavored drives. And this photo just stuck out, and that's a very serious look and a serious haircut right there. Also, the last year that I had short hair. So there you go. Now you've seen it, and now you don't. Okay. Flashback Friday. Okay, so let's talk about this sessions. We're going to have a quick play of this first. And as mentioned, this is sort of partially mixed as it is because it's a stem export. So what I ultimately want to do here is... again, sort of deconstruct some of these things, maybe add back in some compression. When this was mixed at the time, it was for web delivery, but this may have even been before YouTube went stereo. I can't remember. So my original mixes that I have of this, based on some of these stems, they're just not as big as they could have been, because and some of it may have been I was trying to go sort of for a more stylistic 60s sound too. We'll keep this one a little bigger, a little broader. Also, one of the key elements of the, as Steve pointed out here, the spaghetti western, was the whistle track. Now, my original whistle track is in here, but oddly enough, whereas you would have thought either it probably would have been sort of engulfed in reverb or something, I had actually added a weird sort of analog delay to it, which is fine, but the recording of the whistle wasn't great. I don't know. It sounded good in the ultimate mix in the end, but I didn't love it. So we're going to re-record the whistle, assuming I'm whistle friendly this morning. And I think I can make this work with this mic setup. I was going to set up a different mic to do it, and I'm, as always, redoing a bunch of stuff in the studio here. I think we can make it work with this MKH mic that's above me here. All right, so let's take a quick listen to this. I'm going to quickly mute and let you hear what this sounds like. I might need to, we'll see how loud this is. Let me see this original whistle. Just give me 1 second here to test this out. Okay, yeah. Again, in theory, this is already sort of mixed because these are exported stems. And by the way, if you just take a look here at the session itself, we don't number these tracks anymore. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So it's about 15 tracks. Concert bass drum, snare rolls, concert snare, djembe. I remember I happened to my buddy Fred, whom we talked about last week. He had a ton of different hand percussions, so I recorded the djembe up there at his place. French horns. Oh, and then one of the key elements, and I don't think Rufus is tuning in today, but I had every member of the evangelism team. Again, we'll talk about this when you hear it, but there was also a very significant feature of all of the Morricone soundtracks, which is that they'd always have these sort of grunts. So you're gonna hear that in there. And again, this is where we're gonna do a little remixing here to kind of bring more of that out. But let's take a listen to the track which was affectionately titled "We Inspire." Here we go. Hold on, it's not quite loud enough for the stream, so we're gonna rectify that. Ton Fredericks, how are you, my friend? No IBC this year nor any other year, my friend. Those days are over. But I'm very sorry that I won't get to see you. I'm sorry I'm not gonna get to see my buddy Leon, many other friends from the IBC community. But yes, no more IBC for me. And that's going on right now. Or went on right now. I guess it's over for the day. All right, let's take this back now that this is louder. Ton Fredericks. For those of you watching who've watched many a stream on Adobe Live, Ton, very good friend of mine, used to work at Adobe, one of the first people I met back in the day. We used to tour together, amazing designer, and one of the kindest human beings in the world. So very nice to see you. Thanks for watching, man. Diego, how's it going? Okay, so yeah, so you kind of get the flavor and the feel for this. Just to isolate a couple things before we get into the... Yeah, I think that's gonna work. Gotta wet my whistle, literally. Gonna drink some water here. Some pizzicatos. Again, there's a lot of, part of my history was sort of classical composition, so you can feel some of that, and very much in the spirit, right? I mean, it really sounds thematically like those same kind of things, So, but this is what I wanted to call out. So, in particular, so I had each one of us, and at the time, this is like 2007, so this is why I say I'm not even sure YouTube was stereo back then. I don't think so. The evangelism team consisted of, for ones you know, Rufus Deutschler and myself. Terry White had not yet joined us. Thank you, Polk Music. Greg Ruiz, for those of you who remember Greg, Flash Master from back in the day. Carl Soule, whom I've brought on the streams here. We used to have 2 video evangelists back in those days. And then another friend, Paul Burnett, who also did sort of Flash and design. And of course, Rufus covered Illustrator and InDesign and Photoshop. So yeah, really, really fun stuff. But I had sent the track to everybody and I said, okay, I need you to, in tempo, actually I may have just had them do it and then I cut it to tempo. I think that's how we did it. I first had each of them grunt. So, and if you're going, what the hell? Go back, go do a search on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or Fistful of Dollars, or For a Few Dollars More, and you will hear this in each of those soundtracks. It's a key element of the sound design. So just take a listen here, and I think these are dry. I don't even think there's even any effects. Oh, well, there's a submix. Maybe this is the wet version here, probably. All right, let's take a listen. So that's just a pulse the whole time, right? And what you have to understand is, again, in terms of composition, so you have this going, this ruh, and then this. All right, so a lot of fun. And then on top of that, because the idea was, my idea behind this was that, what do evangelists do? We inspire. We used to have Rufus used to have a kind of whole talk track about this when we would do our live shows. So this was the harder one to do. And I'm going to just punch up the volume a little bit here. You can really hear our individual voices somewhat in this. I mean, again, we're kind of doing it in this kind of voice here. But if you take a listen.
We inspire, we inspire, we inspire. We inspire, we inspire, we inspire.
And it's not super clean. You can actually hear, again, I don't have the masters of this anymore, but there's like a good, sort of quick fade out. It kind of sounds like someone's in a room. There's like noise. We were always on the road. So this was all done like in hotel rooms, maybe in a hotel bathroom. I mean, I don't know. But not in a quiet environment, because I was trying to do some of this on the road, and then I came back and did all the music, and then we hit the road again. So anyway, but if you listen carefully, you can hear it's Rufus going. So I wanted it to be we inspire, we inspire. Almost like it's wheat and spa. But he's doing we inspire, we inspire, we inspire. So if you listen carefully, you can hear Rufus in the background doing that.
We inspire, we inspire, we inspire. We inspire, we inspire, we inspire.
Really cool. And it just gave it this other little flavor. Because again, you can't really hear it entirely in the context of the mix. You kind of just hear this we inspire, we inspire. And I think in most of the Western ones, they're saying we can fight or something like that, right? Again, it has that same, it's borrowing. That's what it is. A little borrowing from the style there. Okay, all right. So let's. How am I feeling? Would have worked well in the animated movie Rango. I love Rango. Love that movie. So good. 1, because I love Johnny Depp. 2, because I'm a desert man, and I get that whole vibe. Oh, Jurgen, thank you. Ariana, thank you so much. Okay. Rufus, right, Ton? All right. So what I did here, just to get myself in the mood as well. And by the way, we're going to have to experiment a little, because I was realizing, I don't know how this is going to work. I've got the mic going here through the stream, but I need to hear myself with effects. So we're gonna test this out. I need you in the chat live now, but let me just explain first. So I'm gonna monitor myself with some EQ. Again, sort of a key component. Well, first of all, when recording a whistle, now this is a condenser mic, so actually not super ideal for whistle because it tends to get too much of the glottal mouth sounds. Whistling's gross. I mean, it's awesome, and I am a Southwestern champion circa 1994. But in terms of capturing a whistle, I mean, condenser mics can be okay. This is not a large diaphragm condenser, and I'm actually a bit closer than I would normally be to do something like this. So you want to first of all be sort of off axis, which I'm going to do. So I'm actually going to do it to camera. I'm not going to try and be weird by whistling at you here. But I was testing it out the other day just because I don't want to move. That's not a comment on movement. Anyway, I'm going to be kind of facing this way to be a bit more off axis. So I'm monitoring myself through the Manny American EQ, which is intentionally EQ'd a bit more in the mid-range, again, to give it that sort of older school sound. And then I've also got it going through the classic Abbey Road Plate waves plugin, which is kind of a warmish, but also slightly bright-ish, mid-rangey kind of plate reverb sound. So let's see if this works. So what's going to happen is I'm gonna turn on my monitor here, and I want to make sure that you can all hear me. All right. So chat, be awake. Realizing there's about a 16 to 20 second delay here. So I'm going to mute myself and then turn myself back on through the software, and I think we're going to be good. All right. So hang on. Here we go. Let's give this a shot. All right. Are you hearing me? Let me know. While I'm waiting for your response here, Amen Design is saying, what is your opinion about FL Studio? Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, my boss uses that, and I've never, I mean, I played with it way back in the day when it was still like Fruity Loops. By the way, I'm hoping you're still hearing me. I think you are. I played with it back in the day when it was Fruity Loops, and yeah, it's fun. I mean, you know, especially if you're doing any kind of like loop-based stuff, it's great, among many others. Okay, thank you, Ariana. Thank you, Paul. So yeah, very, you know, all the DAWs today, whether you, especially again if you're doing sort of MIDI-based and loop-based recording, so whether it's FL Studio or Ableton, or of course other DAWs, Logic or whatever, they're great. You know, they're all pretty good today. Back in the day, meh. There's definitely that summer bit. Now, some have more strengths than others. Now, as I've mentioned many times, and you can see I continue to use and drink our Kool-Aid here despite its limitation, which forces me just to play everything in real time live and never sequence anything, which is great because I am a piano player after all. You know, Audition, I'll fight to the death. It's the best stereo and mono wave editor. Hands down. I've used them all. Yeah, as an editor, it rocks. Again, best. I hate that kind of wording anyway. It's great for that. It's really good for that. It's as good as anything, and in many cases, it has more to offer. And there's a lot of things that it does that you can do in its waveform editing view that not all the other DAWs have. You know, but as far as multi-tracks go, FL Studio, yeah, it's great. People love it. Cubase, yes, classic. I mean, I used Cubase way back in the day. I used Cakewalk for brief periods. All the Steinberg stuff back in the day. Super popular. Okay, let's see how this is going to go. Now, obviously, you're hearing my streaming computer. Oh, shh, Nikes. I sort of just realized. Sorry. Oh, no, I did take the effects off. Oh, good. Okay, so we are broadcasting stereo. That's good. I was afraid you were hearing this in mono. I was going to be very upset. So my streaming computer is loud, so I will inevitably have to do a little denoising on this whistle. But that's okay. Also, I'm realizing this may be really loud for me. So I'm going to cut this down just a hair. Okay? So it's not going to be as loud on stream, but no warm-up. I do this live for you. Naked. Musically naked. Okay. Do you hear the, you can even hear the distortion. I'm off axis, but because of the nature of this super cardioid, I mean, I could be all the way over here. Maybe that, I don't know. The problem is if I'm too far off axis with the noise, it's gonna have diminishing returns. So this is live, you know. Whatevs. Okay, hold on 1 second. I have to take myself out of record. Bear with me. Okay. Thank you, Cody Bear. I told you, Southwestern Regional Champion, 1994. Okay, that's actually not a real thing. I've been saying that for years because I am a fantastic whistler. Yeah? Good man always knows his limitations and what he's great at. That's not true. That sounds a little narcissistic. But there's also a bit of that in there. Okay. I digress. I'm just having fun. It's a Friday, all right? Making some music. And let's just take it. That's what my buddy Fred used to say. Actually, it's a line from Chet Baker, but Fred used to cop that line. He would say, let's just take it. Okay, here we go. Let's see. And I'm not going to do the very first. It's too much. So I'm just going to do the main melody. All right, here we go. All right, I kind of barfed at the end there, but I just ran out of breath. All right, not bad for a take one. Many of you have seen it before. I mean, you know. All right, let's do another. And I'm gonna double it. All right. So we'll keep this one in here. Let's bring this down. And what I also want to do, so I have this set up, so here's whistle take one, whistle take one. It's too early for me to get the vibrato in there. See, I can do it, big man that I am, but you know, it's challenging. Okay, I want to put this on the plate bus, pre-fader. Let's do 5-1, and let's do this as 0. Okay, so this is going to ensure that the playback of that other whistle is in my head, and I'm also going to just pan it a little bit to the right so it's not directly underneath me. Make sure that's going there. Okay. Hopefully that's not too distracting. Do a little bit less. Okay. Misty, thank you very much. Polk music. Yes, you caught that line. Good man always knows his limitations. Giddy up. Thank you, Steve. Theo, round of applause. You're very kind. Ton. I'm the man. You're very kind. Ariana, you're kind. Okay. Okay, I gotta take myself out of record again. All right. Now you might think, you know, I've said this before, when you sing with reverb, it's a confidence boost because you can kind of be a little, it can hide some pitch sins. Whistling, on the other hand, because because the frequency response of the whistle is so narrow in general, if you're off, you're off. It kind of just sounds like, so, you know, I'm not saying this is the take that's going on Spotify. By the way, I am going to put this out on Spotify because why not, you know? As my buddy Serge pointed out recently. Serge Jaspers. Why not? Okay, here we go. So you heard I did a little harmony there at the end. A little pitchy in the beginning, said Randy Jackson. No, I never watched American Idol, but that was a meme for a very long time. Pitchy. It's hard. It's hard, friends. All right, let's do one more. Let's do one more on this. I'm gonna kill that other one too. Actually, I'm just gonna turn it way, way down. I gotta turn it way down. I need less of it in the plate reverb. Okay. In the words of Elvis, one more. Yes! Did you see what happened there, friends? Locked into the zone, the pitch zone. No one's commenting, nobody cares. I was locked into the pitch zone at the end there. That was super high. Okay, I'm gonna change my settings here so we can go back to monitoring. So bear with me for 1 second. All right. And we should be back now, right? Yeah, looks good. Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Theo. All right. So good. We got a good take. Got the little harmony in there. You know, we'll see. Maybe all three of them can play together. But that last one in particular, that was pretty solid. So let's just real quick. I just want to see what kind of noise deal we're dealing with here. Again, now I love this. Somebody, as I mentioned, a friend of mine printed a T-shirt of this. So here's our spectral frequency display. So this is really where, you know, again, if you want to start learning about audio, and you want to start understanding pitch and how it relates to frequency and sort of, you know, what vibrato looks like. I mean, this is just like a beautiful vibrato right there. You know, very, very even. But you can see I had to kind of slid into the DMs a little bit here. The pitch is, meh, you know, it's not flat. But again, I'm a human. I'm not a robot. So, but it's just really fascinating to see what these look like, right? And I love this in particular. This is very cool because remember now, color is amplitude. So you can see I start very loud. The closer it is to yellow, right? Start very loud and then progressively get a little quieter, right? As the vibrato kind of trails off. I'm sort of trailing off a little bit. And then you look at some of these. And you're like, damn, man. That's a straight line. Yes. Yes, it is. Straight line. What does that mean? It means my pitch is solid. It's not always. Yeah, I mean, crazy. I'm impressed with myself. Slightly sharp. Okay. So, you know, it's just really fun and fascinating to, you know, if you're trying to understand sort of frequency. By the way, you can also, as I've mentioned before, if you want to turn this into notes, the scale, the vertical scale. Currently we have it in, you know, hertz. We can go into notes so you can actually see, you know, what pitches we're talking about here. right? So as we zero in, you can say, oh, okay, oh, look at that. Yeah, that's, you know, E flat 7, right? You know, i.e. the 7th octave, right? Okay. So let's denoise this real quickly. And what we're dealing with here, got a lot of gunk. Now, again, lots of different ways to do it. We can try the... I think our classic is going to work the best, but we could try the sort of automated AI-ish one, which is the denoiser. Again, we acquired this a couple years back. And let's see what this one sounds like. This one, it's sometimes great, sometimes meh. Let's see. Okay, let's just apply it and see. Not bad. I mean, and again, it's using a little bit of the sort of the spectrally decay, so it actually did a pretty decent job. So I'm going to save this as a DNR version. DNR for, whoops, I just did a save as. No, undo that. Save. I mean, I didn't do a save as, I did a save. Let's redo denoise. And now do a save as. And DNR, not for do not resuscitate, for digital noise reduction. Again, this goes back a ways. You know, someone's like, DNR, what the? No, it's digital noise reduction. Again, my kid came in the other day. I was doing something. He's like, DNR, you know, he's like seen a TV show, like not House, but something where they mentioned a DNR. And he's like, what is that? No, digital noise reduction. Okay. And let's do the other one as well. So this one here. And let's see, you know, I'm curious. Let's see what this one actually seems to be a little less noise on this one. That's interesting. Huh. Yeah, this one is less. Nothing above. Now this is a good example of I don't want to go, I don't see any noise really above sort of 5, 6K. So I'm not going to touch anything up here because there isn't any. Right? Why is there, I wonder why there's less here. Interesting. So let's go ahead and take a sample of this. It's a nice clean sample. Capture a noise print. Go into noise reduction. And we're going to select this entire file. And let's use just a little bit of spectral decay, like 2%. Let's maybe try around 82. I'm getting a little bit of that metallic thing happening when I'm breathing. But the actual noise reduction is better. So it's fine. You know, we can have a variation here. And part of that is you can minimize some of the metallic artifacts of that. That's why I was increasing the spectral decay. You don't want to go much above 5 or 10% because then you start introducing a little too much noise while the performance is happening. But that's an option. And then we'll do this one. See, there's just more noise. It's just a little louder on these for some reason. Yeah, you can hear it. This one is it has less of that weird artifacting, but it definitely sounds like it's just clipping a little harder above some of the high and mid frequencies. But that's okay, you know. Here's the thing, as mentioned, we're going to process this largely in the mid-range, so it actually doesn't really matter all that much. And let's just do one more track here. I'm going to do a mono track. Yeah, why did I do a stereo track? That was dumb. What was I doing? Dope. Okay, put lead 3 on here. Plate, pre-fader, 0. Let's move this one up. This is going to be our top contender. I have to re-listen to this first whistle. I don't know. I don't know if this one's going to do it or not, but we'll leave this down here. All right, and let's start tackling a couple other things while we got this, okay? Let's play this back real quick with everything and see how this sounds. Okay. All right, let's mute that. Let's mute the plate. And let's start tackling some of this stuff. Now, as I mentioned, when this was mixed originally, this was done, you know, before we had sort of the full, and I say this in the sense of audio, like the HD sort of very good fidelity on the web. I even found some phone recordings recently that were like little demos I would record on the road. Wow, I forgot how bad audio recording was on mobile devices certainly pre-iPhone. This would fall into that category, but probably even in early iPhone. Although early iPhone was still probably pretty good. I don't remember. I only had the version 3. I never had version 1. But in general, mobile audio recording on phones was terrible, you know, truly for quite, you know, a good portion of the early 2000s. So, so when I listen to this, it's good, but it doesn't have enough of that. It sounds kind of bright. Again, this is kind of probably by design. So I wanted to punch up the bass drum in particular, but also kind of tamp down a bit of the brightness of the snare. And there's cymbals later on in here as well, right? So now I could use a traditional compressor, and something that we've covered on here before. One of the features of our dynamics processing effect, which is a combination compressor, limiter, expander, gate. Not so easy to use. I despise graph-based compression. But one of the features it offered was band limiting. So you could, now it's only a single band, effectively, because you have sort of a high cutoff, low cutoff, but you could compress, expand, gate, limit a specific frequency range, right? So this is where later we introduced the multi-band compressor, which basically just allows you to compress, limit any 5 different bands simultaneously. So this actually did band-limited compression. This effect has been around for like 20-some plus years. So this was awesome that we had that in there. But again, it's only one band at a time, and I wanted to sort of be able to control the bass, the bass frequencies in conjunction with the higher frequencies, but also do it in a slightly different way. Now, theoretically, I could do this in our multi-band compressor. It's pretty good. You've seen me use it on here before. You define your cutoffs here. So in this case, it's a 4-band. So 0 up to 137 hertz is the first. 130, so that's like, you know, your sort of low frequencies. 135 is kind of the fundamental of a snare drum, of the low fundamental of a snare drum. 137 to 1100 hertz-ish, that's your low mids. 1147 to around 7K, that's your mids, high mids. And then 7K. By the way, these are all adjustable. This is just where I left it. You know, you can dial anything in here. But for this particular setting, 7K to up to 24K in this case would be the high frequencies. And then you can compress each of them differently, separately. You can add gain or reduce gain. You can use different ratios to again affect the compression differently. It's effective, and it has a nice sound. It's also tube modeled, so it's a bit warmer. But I wanted something a little bit more that actually tackles it a little bit differently and has a slightly more modern sound. So I've shown many Waves plugins before. This is the Waves F6, and it is a sort of an EQ based. It's think of it as multiband, 6 in this case, but it just I don't know. It just has a slightly more modern sound to it. So I built 2 presets. I don't want to get into the whole setting here because we've only got about 15 more minutes. But I built two that I wanted to showcase. So first I was like, maybe we just kind of really emphasize the bass drum, the concert bass drum. Right? And if you look at the settings here, what you can see is that I'm adding, first of all, just while, and you'll see as we play back, an enormous amount of compression here. Well, I wouldn't say an enormous amount, but a decent amount of compression above the threshold here on the kick drum frequency. But I'm also emphasizing the low frequencies by about 6 dB. And then everything else that's in the middle, I'm doing some slight minimization, but effectively no additional gain. So it's kind of tamping down the highs seemingly while increasing the lows as it compresses. And you'll see what this looks like. I love that the UI for this is lovely. So let's take a look and take a listen. And I will, of course, do a bypass on off so you can hear what this is actually doing. Here we go. Oh, and let me pump this back up so you can get a better idea of how this sounds. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so here it is without. And let's put it back in. All right. And one of the things you may notice is that not only is it increasing the bass frequencies, but I have the release time set to basically release over the sustain of the concert bass drum, like in time. So it's going as opposed to Now you might say, don't you want it a little tighter? Well, sure, but sometimes. But in this case, because it is sort of concert bass drum, this is driving. Now, there's also a pizzicato playing beneath this. So this is where, again, maybe that release time does need to be a little bit shorter, so it's a little more punchy. But I like it. It's breathing. It just sounds more analog. And I see Tim's here. Yeah, he likes the Fab Filter EQ. Yeah, that's actually what it's called, right? Fab Filter. Very similar, or is this just F6? I don't even remember anymore. I've owned these things for so long. It's great. Now, you can hear what that's doing clearly. And one of the other things, as you start to affect gain ranges, now this is in stereo, okay? And I'm playing this part, I'm not playing this with an actual concert bass drum, I'm playing it with my fingers live on the Kurzweil here, right? The stereo field sounds sort of narrow-ish. But as you start to play around with the different gain and amplification structures of the different frequency ranges, it can also kind of broaden the stereo spread a bit. So that's where I want to show you this one here, concert bass drum and cymbals. Now again, you can see I've intentionally rolled off almost 7 dB of the range above about 10K. Now this is with a fairly wide bandwidth, as you can see. All right, so 0.7 Q, wide band, right? If we were, at 8 Q, more narrow band, etc., it goes all the way up to 60 or something, right? If you're doing sort of very clinical removal, like a ring or something like that. So we're still pumping up the bass, not quite as much, tamping down the mids, raising the upper mids, that's band 5, and then pulling down the highs. So take a listen to this. I'll start with it off and then kick it in and tell me which one you like better. Okay. Now, where you really start to hear this is here. All right. So this is without. Take a listen. Kind of flat. And here it is with. It's nice. Again, you know, it's okay. It's nice on the high end, but I actually like this one better. So we're going to go with that one. And that's when you find out your headphones can't properly reproduce bass at 40 hertz. Damn right. All right. So we're going to stick with this one. Now, as mentioned, this is where we have to have a sort of careful balance between this and the pizzicato strings, which, as I learned a few days ago when I pulled this back up, now these were processed with some of the Abbey Road chamber reverb. So you can play this for a second here. So there's reverb baked in. Can't really do much about that. Also, I'm obviously compressing it, and whatever I was doing, and the sample that I'm using, this was a native instrument sample, there's like noise, it almost sounds like chair noise or something, or it could be just distortion noise coming from the pizzicatos. So I feel like those need to be tamped down a bit via compression. Yeah, it's brighter on the high end with that other one, Steve, exactly. So even despite cranking it down 7 dB, just because those cymbals are so bright, right? So that's why I don't need any, you know, it's one of those increase the bass more, the perception becomes there's more bass and less of that high end. And maybe we roll off a little bit of that in EQ as well. So for this, now you want a compressor that reacts very quickly. Again, I go to my some of my classics, like the simulation of the Fairchild 670 here. And just to give this a little more punch. It's already compressed, that's the problem. But knowing that this is going against that bass drum, that concert bass drum, we're gonna have to be careful here to make sure that these kind of work together. So let's take a listen. Okay, so again, if you're watching the meters, this time constant here is helping us adjust that setting to the release of the compressor here, right? And we have to be careful because we don't want it exactly the same time. Again, the pizzicato is sustained. There's reverb on it, so we're also compressing the reverb. Not something I typically recommend doing. But you can see I also just decreased the gain a little bit. This doesn't have to be as loud because now we've got more of that presence in the kick drum. It can be slightly more felt, and it's still present. It's still loud. So this setting is pretty good. I like this. We'll have to work with the combination of the concert snare in this as well. Although I think this only happens at the end here. Let's take a listen. That works. Okay. And then just wrapping up the percussion here. Got some djembe. Now this would be a case where if we just listen to this sounds pretty dry. know that it really needs anything. You know, sometimes I feel like, you know, too much ambience is too much. Plus, these are so wet. You know? Oh, and it looks like this drum comp. I bet this is the wet output of that. It is. Although maybe this is just, did I have just compression and a little room verb on here? Yeah, that seems a bit loud. Although it is at a pivotal moment. Love those horns. Now again, already affected with reverb here. Some of these, there's some like mid-range distortion in some of these. I don't know where this is coming from exactly, because level-wise they look clean, but there's just some, and it could be just additive because we're monitoring all this way again with effects and everything. But let's see if we can just kind of quiet a little bit of that. Now remember, French horn, you got a lot of resonant frequencies in this kind of 380, 450, 550 range. You can see it, obviously. So we don't want to tamp it down too much, but just to carve out a little bit of space. Yeah, just a little at 465. I think that'll work better. Let's put this stuff back in. With the pizzicatos. Yes. Okay, so we got about 3 minutes here. I don't know if we're gonna get to do much more. Let's just take the We Inspire here. Now this, maybe we can get away with using this in the same plate as the whistle. I don't know if we can. Let's see. So if I go to the mix bus here, let's send this to the plate, and let's see if we can get this sounding good. Oh, I gotta turn. I hate that it does it this way. Turn these off momentarily. That's kind of nice. Yeah, very platey, very mid-rangey. Now, the other thing I might do here, so because they were so dry and a little noisy, sometimes I'll actually put in a as like a send return as an insert, a little room ambience to give them a little space, all right, before they go into the reverb. Now this is post fader, so all of that's being fed into that reverb, but it's just going to kind of give it a little bit of an environment. Probably want around 1600 milliseconds here. Let's take a listen.
We inspire, we inspire, we inspire. We inspire, we inspire, we inspire.
I mean, it's really subtle, but it just gives it a little bit more space. And that's it, my friends. Have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you again on the next one. Stay tuned for the Adobe Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge. Thank you. Bye.